in Mwatate Hospital, where we have ICU. Facility, and it would be cumbersome to transport dead bodies from Mwatate to other mortuaries in and out of the county. Be it as it may, there is need to plan for construction of a mortuary in Mwatate Sub-County Hospital and set up an ICU facility in Moi Hospital. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, one of the objectives that was set to be achieved in CIDP 2 was youth empowerment. I note with great concern that what was stated as performance indicators for youth empowerment is construction of stadiums, which are Moi, Unani, and Mwatunge stadiums. I'm convinced beyond doubt that these are low-ranking indicators for measuring youth empowerment. The priority indicators should be those that will empower our youths economically. Those sports may be considered as a source of employment. It is not a significant number of youths who have benefited through sports sector. It is my considered opinion that we should focus on more formidable avenues of empowering our youths in areas like access to tertiary education and making funds available for doing business through access to government procurement opportunities, AGPO, support for agribusiness and value addition of agricultural produce, and support for artisanal mining, among other. Women and PWDs available from the national government do not cater for startup businesses. There is need to come up with legislation that supports startup business ventures for our youths. A good framework of financing small and micro enterprises in the county with nominal charges was the Datu Sawazisha Fund, which currently is in limbo. There is need to either revive it or start as suppliers of goods and services, since they are uncertain the loans will be repaid. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, allow me at this juncture to comment about the issue of financing of education through the County Education Fund Board. The amendment on the legislation anchoring the board in statute has raised a lot of discussion, which is very healthy in a democratic society. Of great concern is the removal of disbursement of money to beneficiaries through Higher Education Loans Board. The questions that are being asked is whether the students should be given financial support as loans or bursaries / scholarships. A cursory look at the issue would make one choose the option of bursary. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, my honest opinion is that much as the popular answer is to disburse the support through bursaries, or sorry, let me go through that again. Though my honest opinion is that much as the popular answer is to disburse this support through bursaries, money is never recovered. Pay the loans and pave way for others to also benefit. The reports that exist within the county government indicate that already the money collected and ready to be loaned to other deserving cases are in the upwards of 8 million. This is just the beginning, and with better structures, the loan model remains the most sustainable. Mr. Speaker, it has been our experience that money disbursed through bursaries may hinder access to higher education for our children. Additionally, the disbursement has more often than not been discriminatory and marred by political considerations, nepotism, cronyism, causing needy and deserving cases to miss out on the funds. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, I would like to thank the governor for returning the law to the Assembly to review it. and have the loans restated, even though honorable members still could not agree with that. The role of enacting legislation is solely that of this honorable House. I would still plead with you, honorable members, to evaluate the functioning of the funding model with a view to reviewing it at the opportune moment in the near future. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, the worst impediment to growth of devolution and implementation of projects and programs in the counties is corruption. The County Assembly has powers to end corruption in the county executive if they commit themselves to do so. The Constitution of Kenya 2010, Article 185(3) requires the County Assembly to ensure that the county executive and other county organs perform their responsibility according to the laid down rules and regulations. Article 195 of the same Constitution gives the Assembly the powers of the High Court to summon any person for questioning on any issue of interest to the County Assembly. Additionally, Section 124 of the Public Finance Management Act requires the county executive to respond to any matter on finance raised by the County Assembly within 14 days. The County Government Act, in its Section 40, allows the County Assembly to pass a resolution requiring the governor to remove from office county executive committee members. This gives the County Assembly the power to solve most of the corruption cases administratively. Article 185 recognizes that the County Assembly can also solve some of the problems through legislation. There is need to formulate laws and policies that close down the avenues for corrupt practices. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, on the part of the Senate, we have introduced the procedure for removal of office of governors and county executive committee members, speakers, the deputies, by way of impeachment, by clearly defining the roadmap and threshold for the same in the County Government Impeachment Procedure Bill. The bill has been established and it is in its first reading. This is also aimed at ensuring the process is clear and discourages starting process of impeachment on flimsy grounds. As you may well know, all Kenyans are supposed to go through fair administrative action. This law, if enacted, will ensure that issues of corruption and acts of malfeasance are dealt with expeditiously. It is good to note that the county assemblies are bestowed with the process of impeachment, while the trial of state officers undergoing an impeachment process takes place at the Senate. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, the Constitution in Article 229, Section 8, requires members of County Assembly to, after 3 months of the release of the Auditor General's report, to consider, adopt, and make appropriate actions on these recommendations, on the recommendations of the report. There is need for the Assembly to communicate these resolutions to the relevant government agencies for action. As it is now, county assemblies wait for Senate to pass resolutions on reports of the Auditor General, which end up delaying investigations, given that the Senate is supposed to look at reports for all the county governments, which makes it have backlogs. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, apart from the funds that are received by counties from the national shareable revenue, there is need to increase on-source revenue. From the report of the Auditor General for the year ending June 2022, it is not possible to ascertain whether all the funds reached the county revenue fund account, because it points to a possibility of revenue leakage. There is need to seal all the revenue leakages, and the most appropriate way is to make the revenue collection fully digitized. It is disheartening that even after the Auditor General and the Senate insisting and recommending that revenue collection be fully digitized, the county has since retained the manual revenue collection. In this regard, I urge the county government to adhere to these recommendations in order to seal pilferage of county funds. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, as the Senate of Kenya, we have continuously, without tiring, pushed for higher allocations to our counties, to our county assemblies. This has seen the shareable to our counties. This has seen the shareable revenue increase year after year. It is good to note the Senate has played a key role in ensuring that these increments are achieved despite the resistance from the executive. A case in point is when there was an attempt to reduce county shareable revenue to 310 billion in the year 2021-2022, down from 316.5 billion allocated in 2019-2020 during the discussion of DORA. After a long struggle, we agreed on a consensus to leave the county allocation to 316.5 billion. Mr. Speaker, the second instance is when the Senate was passing the third generation formula, when the proposed formula was going to see change of parameters for sharing revenue amongst counties. Since the National Executive was proposing the sharing of the 316.5 billion using a new formula, some counties were gaining revenue while others were to lose. TAVETA County was to lose 388 million. Most of us stood the ground and marshaled numbers to defeat the executive and were able to push for the revenue to counties to go up by 53.5 billion to 370 billion in that financial year of 2021-2022. We also pushed for retention of the second generation formula as the third generation formula. The next basis for sharing revenue will be passed in the 2025-2026 fiscal year. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, we must, however, remain vigilant of the powerful forces in the Kenya Kwanza government which might be hell-bent to frustrate devolution. To illustrate these forces, Mr. Speaker, by what happened this year during the passage of the 2023-2024 Division of Revenue Act. Whereas the Commission for Revenue Allocation proposed a share of 407 billion to counties, Treasury proposed a figure of 385 billion, which is 22 billion less. They used their numbers in the National Assembly and the Senate to have the DORA bill pass. In the Senate, Kenya Kwanza voted 25 senators for 385 billion against 8 senators who voted 407 billion from the Azimio side. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, the shareable revenue is projected to grow by 49.57 billion, equivalent to 20% increase from the allocation in DORA 2022. However, the national government allocation will increase by 413, whereas the national government allocation will increase by 413.27 billion, which is 23.43%. The county equitable share will increase by 15.45 billion, which is 4.2%. This will mean that all goods and services budgeted for may not be achieved, since the 4.2% will not cater for inflationary costs, which are at 8.4% in this year. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, this year DORA factored in an allocation on equalization fund. The equalization fund is supposed to be appropriated using Equalization Fund Act. Parliament has since passed the Equalization Fund Bill, which shared 8,654,943,469, being 0.5% of all revenue to be collected, which is 1.73 trillion of the most recent audited accounts approved by the National Assembly, which are for the financial year 2019-2020. TAITA TAVETA has only 2 wards benefiting from this fund. These are Kasiga Ward and Chala Ward, which will receive 6.3 and 6.9 million respectively. The truth is that almost all wards in TAITA TAVETA County deserve to benefit from this fund. I will be seeking a statement from the Senate Committee on Finance and Budget to try and understand the study by KRA, how the study by KRA left out the rest of the wards of TAITA TAVETA during the drawing of the second generation formula for sharing of equalization fund. This fund is meant to help counties build road networks, fund water and electricity projects. Most of our county really needs these services, and so any formula which denies TAITA TAVETA equalization fund is not reliable at all. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, it is important to note that Treasury has continued to allocate huge sums of money to national government ministries, departments and agencies for functions that are largely devolved. For instance, 25 billion was added to the Ministry of Agriculture, yet agriculture is devolved. The national government share of revenue will be 2,177,867 million, out of which 11 billion and 16 million shall be transferred to counties as additional conditional allocations. Mr. Speaker, another bad sign that the current national executive is not pro-devolution is by their continuous delay in disbursement of funds to counties in time. This is happening even after the Senate of Kenya passing elaborate disbursement schedule as required by the law. The county governors have been seen from time to time lamenting in mainstream media about non-remittance of shareable revenue to counties and have even threatened to shut down counties. We must therefore vigorously resist further attempts to return Kenya to a centralized system of governance. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, library services being a devolved functions and as per the fourth schedule has now been unbundled, and attendant resources amounting to 425 million identified and proposed to be fully transferred to county government. This amount of 425 million has been included in the equitable share for the allocation to 33 county governments in a phased approach starting from the financial year 2023-2024 at 100%, 75% for financial year 2024-2025, balance of 25% to be shared as equitable, and 25% for the fiscal year 2025-2026, a balance of 75% to be shared as equitable from the fiscal year that is 2026-2027. The 33 county governments will be required to integrate the salaries of this staff into their payroll, after which the entire 425 million will be available for sharing to all the 47 county governments. Having said this, it is good to note that the Senate of Kenya raised concern about the inclusion of the 425 million for library services as part of county equitable share. This is because these funds have already been earmarked for a specific purpose and cannot be distributed using the revenue sharing formula. Indeed, the resources have been carved out from the Kenya National Library Services recurrent expenditure and not from the projected revenue. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, a lot of focus must be placed on planning, execution, and monitoring of projects and programs by the county executive. This is where our role as oversight arm of government we must up our game to make sure that our people get goods and services and in a timely manner. To this end, the Senate of Kenya has continued to allocate more funds to county assemblies under CARA to ensure that assemblies are well resourced to carry out their mandate. Mr. Speaker, I equally agree with the members of the county assemblies in their clamor for more pay. The job that they do in making laws, representation, and oversight is such a gargantuan task, which a pay commensurate to it is required. Given the nature of financial demands from the public, the MCAs become vulnerable and can easily be corrupted by the executive to turn a blind eye to corruption in the counties. It behooves each one of us to support the call for better remuneration from our MCAs. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, additionally, I have always pushed for financial autonomy of county assemblies to allow them independence to carry out their mandate without undue influence from the executive for fear of being denied access to finances and development. From the foregoing, you may be seeing the value that assemblies add to devolution. If county assemblies go to bed with the executive, then we shall surely miss out on development. It is always good to learn from experience, and one of the experiences to learn from was the dalliance that the executive of the last regime had with the assembly. We witnessed serious underdevelopment. The enlightened public reciprocated by voting out most of those whom they left felt did not work well. It is my sincere hope that the good team in place right now in the assembly will not be compromised along the way and drop the ball. Let us maintain the good work and the eagerness that you have exhibited since you took oath. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, in carrying out your mandate, you are advised to be conversant with the national legislations that guide most of our oversight work, namely the Constitution of Kenya 2010, the County Government Act, the Public Audit Act, the Cities and Municipalities Act, the Public Finance Management Act, and their attendant regulations. In the case where the provisions of the national laws are not adequate to address the challenges in the county level, there is need to make laws suitable for our county. To facilitate the making of county laws, several pieces of legislation have been considered and some have been signed into law. These include the County Attorney Act to ensure drafting of laws at the county level, County Government Printers Bill to ensure speedy publishing of the bills, among others. In this regard, I would urge as many members to come up with private members' bills, which would go a long way in compelling the executive in implementing projects and programs for the good of our county. Most legislators have opted to sponsor motions so as to come up with specific resolutions. The downside of motions is that they give a choice to the executive to choose what to implement and what not to implement. This does not mean that motions are not important. There are many motions discussed and passed, and their resolutions and recommendations informed birth of new laws or proposals of amendments to existing laws. Mr. Speaker, sir, and honorable members, the boundary conflicts between our county and neighboring counties have continued to be a thorny issue among netizens. These are boundary conflicts between TAITA, TAVETA, and Makueni, TAITA, TAVETA, and Kwale, TAITA, TAVETA, and Kajiado. I may want to refrain from addressing the substance of these issues surrounding boundaries between Kwale and TAITA, TAVETA, Makueni, and TAITA, TAVETA because of the sub judice rule. However, it is good to note that there is a report done by a task force led by Wilson Mongombe, whose report speaks to the encroachment by our neighbors to our county land. We await the outcome of the court cases and see how to pursue the issues after getting the ruling. I have presented statements and petitions on the same in the last parliament, and will not relent until we get our boundaries restored to where they were originally. I would strongly urge the County Assembly to consider petitioning the Senate to look at these boundary issues and use the information of the Mongombe report as authority and basis for consideration. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, in the previous regime of this county, it is sad to note that the boundary between Kajiado and TAITA TAVETA counties was varied by the two governors of TAITA TAVETA and Kajiado counties. I have requested for a statement from the Senate Committee on Devolution to give me an explanation on the lawfulness of the action by the two governors. Article 188 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 is clear on the procedure to be followed in varying county boundaries. That mandate is given to the Parliament of Kenya, and that is the Senate and the National Assembly. I have requested the Committee on Devolution to work hand in hand with the Committee on Lands and the Committee on National Cohesion so that we get answers. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, the way to resolve the numerous boundary disputes between different counties in Kenya is through making legislation to operationalize Article 188. In the last Parliament, the Senate passed the County Boundaries Bill and forwarded it to the National Assembly for concurrence. This bill lapsed in the National Assembly. The bill has been republished afresh in the Senate and it is in the second reading. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, our people have continued to suffer lack of water supply year in, year out. Politicians use the water issue as campaign strategy on the platform of solving water crisis. In the last government, a rig was purchased to dig boreholes to enhance supply of water. After spending a colossal sum to purchase the rig, I did not see any effort to provide water through digging boreholes for the public. What I hear is that it was turned to doing private jobs of drilling boreholes, whereas that may not be a bad thing if it is used as a revenue stream. The original idea of doing public work should remain the main focus. What the current assembly needs to do is to find out how much work the drilling machine has done so far and find out the plans in place to ensure boreholes are done. In case the rig has been used corruptly, then the culprits must be brought to answer. Honorable Speaker, talking about water provision, there are several boreholes that were done as early as 2015, produced water, but the water has not been abstracted and given to people for use. I found one such borehole during my oversight work in Chalawad, Mpakani village. There is need to ensure reticulation of this water from this borehole. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, I know there are many such incomplete projects which need to be completed. Incomplete projects are raised as audit queries by the Auditor General because citizens don't get value for their money spent in incomplete projects. There is need for the Assembly, select committees to flag such projects and demand that the executive prioritizes their completion. Some of them include Moi Stadium, Lumi Dispensary, the Bomeni Women Market, among others. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, another project is the Njorokuba Water Project, which was to supply 86% to irrigable land and 14% to domestic water. The previous government was against the project, so they did not approve. I request this government to pursue the project to see how we can increase our county gross domestic product, gross county product. All the fodder produced and the animals that would be reared in the ranches would produce revenue through sales and pay from the employees. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, still on the water project, on the subject of water, we need to really think about building of check dams to harvest rainwater. When it rains, all the water goes to the oceans as if you have a tender to fill the nation, the ocean. The county government needs to fund the feasibility studies for these dams to establish the places where these dams can be built and their costs. When it is done, it is possible to get investment partners to finance these projects through grants or loans. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, apart from the small water projects, other ongoing World Bank funded water projects need our oversight too, so that our people can access water. Remember, these are loans that will be paid by our future generations. The national government has time and again promised to construct the Mzima 2 water projects. The news from the Ministry of Water and Sanitation that the project has been terminated and that there is a new design being done came as a shocker to many. We will continue pushing the national government to expedite the process to make sure we get water supply to our people soonest possible. Mr. Speaker, sir, honorable members, there is need to look for avenues to raise our own source revenue. This is because the shareable revenue revenue being divided equitably and more money is remaining in the national government to service the national debt obligations. Increasing our revenues makes sense because of the need to increase salaries for county employees, give them promotions, to generally cater for inflation, and to reduce the percentage of wage bill to county total revenue, which is currently at 53%, instead of the minimum allowed of 35%. When the wage bill is too high, there is little money left for development. There is need to freeze unemployment and do proper staff rationalization to check the spiraling wage bill. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, still on the same issue of revenue, I have sadly noted that our levies for permits are on the higher side compared to neighboring counties. As a government, we need to facilitate our people to do business and not to tax them out of business. This year I'll be very keen on public participation of the county finance bill to see how we involve and take views from the market people. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, I have spoken on many forums on how we are mistreating our market people by overtaxing them. They are first charged for the ground fee and afterwards they're expected to pay for the toilet services. This is double taxation because the ground levy is to ensure this market woman or man access water, toilet, security, cleaning, and even lighting services. The toilet charge should be charged to the people who are not doing business in town. Let's create a conducive environment for businesses to thrive, which is our role as government. Mr. Speaker, When I requested to know how much our county was set to get from this sharing formula, I was surprised to get information from the Minister of Tourism that the county would not get anything from that share. On this, I would strongly urge the County Assembly to petition the Senate with specific prayers that the government implements the presidential directive immediately. The proceeds from the park will add substantially to our own source revenue. It is disheartening, Honorable Speaker, to note that within this new administration of Kenya Kwanza, Kajiado County was handed over Amboseli National Park. What is wrong? What wrong have we done to deserve this discrimination of not being allowed to benefit from our Savo National Park, which covers 62% of our land? Mr. Speaker and honorable members, there are many land issues in Kenya and our county has not been left out. There are cases where land has its lease expired and the renewal done and procedurally. There are pieces of land whose leases have expired and the county government is clear that renewal should not be granted. An example is Machungwani land in TAVETA. I presented a petition to the Senate and our recommendation is that the land should be adjudicated and given to people who are already farming there. I may not comment further since this is a matter before a court of law. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, the other land which with issues is the Msambweni land issue, which we addressed as a Senate through a petition. We recommended that the Commissioner of Lands add in changing the conditions in the original lease that the investor build a factory within 2 months after the grant and the land should not be sold. Our recommendations are that the circumstances of the change of conditions be investigated further by EACC. There is also need to pursue purchase of the land through Settlement Fund Trustee Board so that the land can be bought by government to settle the people living there as squatters. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, the other land is the Voi Point Limited land. The case of the matter being adjudicated in the courts, but just to mention that the residents of Mkamenyi petitioned the Senate acres to the 28 families to make it 50 acres. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, allow me to address the issue of human-wildlife conflict. Human-wildlife conflict has remained a thorny issue in our county. Though the national government is trying to carry out mitigation measures, the measures have not adequately addressed these challenges. The cases where there are projects to build the fences, but there are cases where there are areas where erecting fences have proved difficult. An example is the Maktau location, which is surrounded by national park, leaving it in between like an island. In 2019, I brought the Senate Committee of Tourism to see how to stop the killing of cattle. To human-wildlife conflicts have proven to be quite complex. At this point, I would like to congratulate the members of the County Assembly who held demonstrations to protest the inaction by KWS when required to respond in good time when called upon to scare away the wildlife to the Savo conservation area. Allow me also to condemn the police officers who scuttled the peaceful demonstrations by the MCAs by use of excessive force. The other method of mitigation of these conflicts is through compensation. The government has failed in this respect to provide adequate budget for compensation. Many people have lost their lives and livelihoods as a result of human-wildlife conflict, but it takes a lot of time to compensate them. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, I have taken time to look at the bill and propose some amendments to the Wildlife Management Act of 2013, but the bill did not go through the National Assembly as it was declared a money bill. I will look at the bill once more to remove the offensive clauses like the ones that one is required to have their fence their land to prevent animals from destroying their crops. I have republished the bill, the amendment bill, again, since the two speakers of parliament have agreed that the bill involves counties and therefore can emanate from the Senate. In this bill, I'm seeking to reduce the time for compensation to below 2 years, to restore compensation for harm, that is maiming or death by snake bites, among other critical provisions. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, there is need to funds and collaborate with national government and seek to mitigate through all areas where there is human-wildlife conflict. In my consultation with KWS and the Ministry of Tourism, the funds required to construct an electric fence around the county is about 300 million. This can be shared between the county and the national government. The county needs to come in and help its citizens even when wildlife management is not a devolved function. The most important thing is to have our people to secure their lives and livelihoods from the wildlife menace. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, in conclusion, the challenges notwithstanding, we can still make our county of TAVETA prosperous if we create synergy by working together to ensure that we enact the requisite laws and policies to guide on specific aspects of governance. We need to remain vigilant and do proper oversight to ensure prudent use of resources meant to deliver goods and services to the great people of TAVETA. I would like to wish our Muslim brothers well in this month of Ramadan. For the Christian brothers, I wish them well during the upcoming Easter holiday. Asanteni sana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Pursuant to the provisions of the County Assembly of TAITA Standing Orders number 22 and 21, subsection 4, I beg to lay the address of the Senator of the County of TAITA, Honorable Jones Mwaruma Mwashushe, on the table of this House, today, Tuesday, the 19th of March, 2024. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honorable Senator and honorable members, we have concluded the business of the day, and it's now time to adjourn. Honorable members, there being no other business, the House now stands adjourned until Wednesday, 20th March 2024 at 9:30 a.m. I request all members and our guests to remain upstanding for the national anthem and until the procession of the Honorable Senator and the Speaker leaves the chamber. Thank you.